The master of Mississippi always chose the weakest man to fight, but no one expected what came next. In the heart of Mississippi, Master Calvin Thornwood had a brutal ritual. Whenever a slave stopped being productive, he called them for one final fight right there in the middle of the plantation under the scorching sun in front of everyone. The rule was simple: win and earn your freedom. Lose and die fighting. For the master, it was a way to dispose of those who no longer served him and to fill the others with terror. He would call anyone: an old man, a weak young worker, even a sick boy. His violence was the plantation's spectacle. Many men had faced him. Many men had died. But on a humid August morning, something different happened. The man Thornwood called that day had been acting strangely for weeks, moving slower, coughing more, stumbling in the fields. Everyone thought he was dying. Everyone except one person. When the master issued the challenge, the plantation fell into absolute silence. The weak man stepped forward. No fear in his eyes, no hesitation in his steps. And in that moment, some of the older slaves recognized something. A pattern they'd seen before. A strategy older than the plantation itself. What happened next would change everything. But the master had no idea what was coming. Thornwood Plantation sat on thousands of acres of Mississippi Delta land, rich, dark soil that produced cotton in abundance. The kind of land that made white men wealthy and black people suffer. The plantation was at peak production. Many slaves worked from dawn until dark, 6 days a week, with only Sunday afternoons for rest. They lived in rows of crude cabins behind the main house, slept on wooden pallets, ate rations of cornmeal and salt pork, wore clothes made from the cheapest fabric, existed in a state of permanent exhaustion and fear. Calvin Thornwood owned all of this, had inherited the plantation from his father. He was young, ambitious, and determined to prove himself even more successful than his father. His father had been a traditional plantation owner. Cruel, yes, but predictably cruel. Whipping for infractions, sales to separate families, overwork until bodies broke, standard methods of control that every plantation used. But Calvin wanted something more. He wanted absolute dominance, wanted his slaves to fear him in ways they'd never feared his father. He studied methods of control, read books about breaking horses, applied those principles to breaking people, developed techniques of psychological torture, of unpredictable violence, of spectacles designed to traumatize and terrorize. And his most effective spectacle was the fights. The ritual started years earlier. A slave named Abraham had turned old that year. His hands were gnarled with arthritis. His back was permanently bent from decades of field work. He couldn't keep up with the younger workers. Calvin watched him struggling, then one morning called him to the center of the workyard. Announced to the assembled slaves that Abraham would fight him. If Abraham won, he'd be freed. If he lost, well, he wouldn't need freedom anymore. Abraham was terrified, knew he had no chance against a healthy young master. But what choice did he have? So he fought, raised his arthritic fists, tried to defend himself. Calvin toyed with him, then struck back. One massive blow to Abraham's jaw. The old man went down. Calvin kicked him until Abraham stopped moving, stopped breathing, died in the dirt while everyone watched. The other plantation owners heard about Calvin's method. Some criticized it, told Calvin he was destroying valuable property, that selling old or sick slaves was more economical than killing them. But Calvin disagreed. Fear is worth more than the sale price of a worn-out slave. One dead man in the dirt teaches 100 others to work harder. And he was right. In the months after Abraham's death, productivity on Thornwood Plantation increased. People worked through pain, hid illness, pushed beyond their limits because the alternative was the circle, was the master's fists, was death in front of everyone. Over the years, many men died in that circle. Not all old, not all sick. Some were just unlucky. Calvin would watch, would wait until someone couldn't hide their weakness anymore, then call them out, make them fight, make them die. Each death had a name, had a history, had a family who mourned. One by one, month by month, the death toll accumulated and the fear intensified. But fear also breeds other things: resentment, hatred, and in some people, determination to resist. Elijah was one of those patient ones. Born on a plantation in South Carolina, he was sold when his original master died, marched overland to Mississippi, and sold at auction. Elijah had been on Thornwood Plantation for many years, had watched the transition from traditional brutality to Calvin's refined sadism, had witnessed all the deaths in the circle, and through all of it, Elijah had been careful, had played the role of the good slave, hard worker, obedient, non-threatening. Because Elijah was learning, was studying Calvin's methods. Calvin was strong, no question. Tall, muscular, had natural athletic ability, but he wasn't trained. Didn't know formal fighting techniques. Relied on rage and strength, relied on his opponents being weak, terrified, and unable to defend themselves effectively. Against old men and sick boys, that was enough. But what would happen against someone who could actually fight back? Someone young and strong who knew what they were doing. So Elijah did something quietly revolutionary. He sought knowledge from the oldest people on the plantation, the ones who remembered Africa. There was a woman named Sarah. She'd been brought from West Africa as a young woman, had survived the Middle Passage, had survived decades of slavery. She was old now, but kept alive because she was valuable as a midwife and healer. Sarah also knew things the white people didn't know. Combat techniques from her homeland. The Igbo people had warrior traditions, knew how to fight larger opponents, knew pressure points and vulnerable areas on the human body, knew how to turn an enemy's strength against them. When Elijah approached her quietly one evening, she understood what he was planning. Over the next months, Sarah taught Elijah in secret. After dark in hidden places, she showed him where to strike for maximum damage. She taught him how to use leverage, how a smaller person could throw a larger one, how to redirect force rather than oppose it directly. She taught him footwork, how to move, how to avoid strikes. Ancient knowledge passed down through generations, now weaponized for one desperate purpose. But knowledge alone wasn't enough. Elijah needed opportunity, needed Calvin to choose him for the circle. But Calvin only chose the weak, the obviously failing. So Elijah had to become weak. He began his performance, started moving slower in the fields, would drop his cotton sack, would stumble, would cough frequently. Small things at first, but consistent. Day after day, week after week, the performance intensified. Elijah lost weight deliberately, ate less, made himself look gaunt, slumped his shoulders to appear smaller, made every movement look labored. The overseers noticed. The head overseer reported to Calvin that Elijah seemed to be declining rapidly. Calvin came to observe, saw the stumbling, the coughing, the apparent weakness, and decided Elijah was used up. But there was one person who saw through Elijah's act. Sarah knew, because she was helping him. But there was also a young woman named Grace. She was in love with Elijah, and she realized what he was doing. She confronted him one night. "You're planning something. Planning to get called to the circle. Planning to fight Calvin." Elijah didn't deny it. "I have to do something. Can't just wait to get old and die in that circle like everyone else." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "You'll die anyway. Even if you win the fight, they'll kill you afterward. You know that." Elijah took her hands. "Maybe. But I'd rather die fighting than die begging. And maybe I won't die. Maybe there's a way. If you do this," she said, "I'm losing you. One way or another, you'll be gone. Then come with me," Elijah said. "If I somehow survive, if I somehow escape, come with me. We'll run together, find freedom together." Grace pulled away. "That's a dream, a fantasy. No one escapes Mississippi." She was crying. "I love you, but I won't watch you die in that circle. When they call you out, I'll look away. I can't watch it happen." Elijah understood. He held her while she cried, memorizing the feel of her, knowing this might be their last night together. The call came on a Monday morning, humid even at dawn. The field slaves assembled in the workyard. Calvin emerged from the big house. The head overseer rang the bell, the signal that meant stop everything, the signal that meant someone was about to die. All work stopped. All the slaves assembled. They knew what was coming. Calvin surveyed the crowd, finally spoke. "We've got dead weight on this plantation. People not pulling their share." His eyes found Elijah in the crowd. "Elijah, step forward." The crowd parted. Elijah walked through it, head down, shoulders slumped, every movement suggesting exhaustion and defeat. He stopped a short distance from Calvin. Didn't look up. "You've been declining," Calvin said. "Getting weak, becoming useless. I've been watching you. So, we're going to settle this the usual way. You and me, right here, right now. Same rules as always. You win, you're free. You lose. He smiled that terrible smile. Well, you won't have to worry about being tired anymore. The white overseers laughed. They stood in a loose circle around the workyard, all armed, all there to prevent any slave from interfering. All confident in the outcome. But something happened that made Calvin pause. Elijah raised his head, looked directly into Calvin's eyes, and smiled. Not a submissive smile, but a knowing smile. The smile of someone who has a secret. I accept your challenge, Master, Elijah said. The way he said, Master, was wrong. It carried mockery. It carried confidence that shouldn't exist. Calvin felt something unfamiliar, a flutter of doubt. But he'd issued the challenge, had witnesses, couldn't back down now. Mark the circle, he ordered. The overseer used a stick to scratch a circle in the dirt. Many men had died within that circle. Another was about to join them. Calvin removed his shirt, revealed his physique. He was tall, muscular, arms thick from years of work, chest broad, shoulders powerful. He was in his prime. He looked like what he was, a dangerous man.